in discovering the path of virtues. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your motivational and inspiring speech. Dr. Bharat Gupta will now give us a keynote address. Few words about him. Dr. Bharat Gupta is a renowned Indian classicist, theatre theorist, sitar and sur bahar player, musicologist, and newspaper columnist. He is also a retired professor in English who taught at the College of Vocational Studies at the University of Delhi. Much of his writing is devoted to classical Indian and classical Greek drama, comparing the similarities and the differences and exploring the possibilities of common Indo-European origins, and also a visiting faculty at the National School of Drama, Delhi. He has also studied ancient Indian musicological texts and modern Indian music, Yoga Sutras, and classics under Acharya K.C. Brihaspati and Swami Kripavanda. Trained both in modern European and traditional Indian educational systems, he has worked in classical studies, theatre, music, culture, and media studies, and researched as senior fellow of the Onassis Foundation in Greece on the revival of ancient Greek theatre. Very pleased to have such a scholarly and knowledgeable person in our midst today. May I request our chairman, Shri S. Ramadurai, to felicitate Dr. Bharat Gupta. I request Dr. Bharat Gupta to give the keynote address for Kala Samprekshana 2022, Harmony with Art.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Yam Shaiva Samupasate Shiva iti Brahmeti Vedantino Bauddha Buddha iti Pramana Patavaha Karate iti Naiyayikaha Arhan Nityatha Jaina Shasana Rato Arhan Nityat Jaina Shasana Rato Karameti Mimamsaka Soyam Yo Vidadhat Vanchita Phalam Trailokyanato Hari. Let the Trailokyanath, the Lord of three universes, grant you all your legitimate desires. He is the Lord of the three worlds, Hari, but he is also Buddha, he is also Shiva, he is also Yajna, he is also Arhat, he is also the Karta of the Naiyayika. It is he and he alone who takes all these diverse shapes and manifestations. So I thought of reminding myself of the theme by quoting this 11th century verse written as Mangala Charana to a play called Mahanataka. In 11th century this was written. And the message, which is the ancient message of this land of ours, the message that truth is one, truth is abiding, and truth is triumphant. Satyameva jayate nanmitam. To come to Kalakshetra is to come to a Vidya Tirtha. Tirthas are many in our land. This country has always been full of tirthas, from most ancient times to the present day. And there are all kinds of tirthas. But the tirthas that keep all other tirthas alive are the Vidya Tirthas. Because Vidya Gurunam Guru. Vidya is the teacher of all teachers. And so if Vidya is the sadhana in a place, then that is the Vidya Tirtha. About 11 years ago, I had an opportunity to come here and give detailed lectures on the Natya Shastra for 5 days, 5 hours every day. And they are all on the internet, on my YouTube channel, you can watch them. That was a memorable experience for me. With the blessings of my teachers, I have traveled within the country and outside the country a lot. But talking those 5 or 6 days at Kalakshetra is my most memorable experience. For the simple reason that I was talking to the practitioners. Those of us people like me, who pretend to be knowledgeable in a shastra or a system, they go and talk in front of all kinds of audience. But the true applicability of whatever we have as knowledge or information with us is only for those who practice that art. So to talk to the practitioners, to the gurus and the students of dance, of Natya, is a special privilege for a theoretician like me. And there are not very many places where you can find such people eager to listen, and where you can find yourself welcome again and again, as I have been welcomed so warmly by Revati ji this time also. So it is indeed a blessing for me. I was seeing that in the brochure there is the motto, so to speak, of Kalakshetra, Raso Vaisaha. Indeed, that is the Mahamantra of all Indian art, and it goes back to Taittiriya Upanishad, Raso Vaisaha yam labdhva anandi bhavati. But that is the final stage. That is the final stage, not of art, but the stage to which art brings us. Because Rasovai Saha, Saha is Brahma, and Brahma Gyan. Art pushes us towards it. And this vision, then art is a door to the divine. This vision that art is a dehari dwara, that it is like the threshold which lightens whatever is outside the threshold and whatever is inside the threshold. It lights the room and it lights the door to the room. So it lights the garbhagriha, the garbha, hiranya garbha, and it lights the way. This is the Indian vision, of course, which we are never tired of saying, but it is the truth. And not only the Upanishads, the supreme words about Vedanta, but also the Dharma Shastras made it very clear. The Yagyavalkya Smriti made it very simple. Veena Vadana Tattvajño Jati Shruti Visharadaha Talajyo cha aprayasena moksha margam niyachati. That one who is adept in playing the veena, one who knows the ragas, one who knows the tal, he or she can proceed towards liberation. And in India, the idea that my art or my skill, although that skill may be as simple as making a picture, it may not be Shodash, Chatushashti Kala, 64 arts, it may not be profound arts like Vyakarana, it may not be something deep, but even the simple skill, or what is called skill. Skill is a very modern word, and it's always seen in the context of money making. But this is not what the traditional meaning is. The traditional meaning is represented by the word like kala. It is represented by, let us say, the profound Greek word techni, which means that there is kali techni, the beautiful skill for arts, fine arts, and for everyday practice, but both are same because both are sacred. So, even an ordinary craftsman has been, times are changing unfortunately, but I can recall in my childhood, even the most humble carpenter or pitcher maker was proud of his skill and thought that this skill, if it is practiced with honesty, with faith, will lead him to a higher state of being. So, art is something which transforms life. This is the fundamental belief. And art is something which has a higher end. Unfortunately, in the last 50 years or so, and under the impact of so many theories about art, about ethnography, ethnomusicology, about the purpose of skills, most of these theories, which actually have a European or American origin, our faith in this traditional belief has been shaken. So when I saw that Revati ji has put the theme here, harmony through art, I said, yes, she is going against the current. Because what is the current? The current is, how can I get social justice through art? People are employing art to promote the idea of social justice, gender equality. That's the hot cake, gender equality. And multiculturalism. Multiculturalism, is an ethnographic division of the population of a country in terms of religion, that so many people follow this religion, so accommodate them for this reason, accommodate others for that reason, try to balance between the two. This is multiculturalism, as has been practiced since 1950 and is enshrined in the Constitution. So all this is being forced upon art. And as you who practice art, who actually live art, and anybody who practices art in any part of the world, from any faith, from any religion, would know this, because her or his heart would be the witness of it, that art does not need any clutches. Art does not need to serve something else, because art has that transforming quality for the one who is practicing that art. And this is something which has been known to the teachers and the gurus of our land. And everybody practiced it in the same way. I learned sitar from Pandit Uma Shankar Mishra. He practiced it this way. I learned Rudra Been from Ustad Asad Ali Khan. He practiced it exactly the same way. Because there is only one way that you can cultivate or do sadhana of art to reach a higher aim. So, when we come to harmony, we must understand that the harmony which art brings is of a higher kind. It is not the harmony of social justice. It is not the harmony of providing economic relief at various levels. Because that is like using the wrong instrument for a particular equipment. You need a fine needle if you want to do embroidery. A fine needle is needed. And you can only do embroidery with it. And you need a spade in order to dig earth. So very often, what happens is that the state, the Rajya, or certain influential people in the world, and influential people in the world today are beyond state now. Corporations like Google, big influential people who can even make and unmake a president of United States. So such organizations would like to use art for their own purposes. This is happening. This is the age of cheating, making fools of others. And this is done unashamedly, 24/7 on the television today. It is an art. It is called the art of advertising. It is a reality in which we are living. And certain medias which were very powerful, helpful in improving our lives have been captured by it. Till 1955 or so, Indian cinema did immense service to our nation. They made excellent films, great films, beautiful films. And I've seen some of them like Mughal-e-Azam 10 times, or maybe 20 times. But then you see the purpose changes. The purpose becomes to collect more money, or on television to collect more TRP. And the whole system of art is now used for that purpose. Art cannot survive this way. Our ancestors knew this very well. In the Natya Shastra, there is a story that when some of the actors, great actors, Mahanatas, when they played great satirical plays, prahasanas, then they made fun of the sages. They made fun of the learned people who were really learned. Of course, the Indian tradition allowed prahasanas to make fun of teachers who don't teach and students who don't study. That was the purpose of prahasanas. But it did not allow them to insult the knowledgeable, the alim, the vidyavan. It did not allow them. They did it, and hence they were cursed that you will lose your art. Unfortunately, we are living in a world which is not too far from that. We are not protecting our art. I'm not talking of people smuggling out art. You know, great works of art, statues are being chiseled out from temple walls and shipped to some of the art sellers in America and, in England, especially Sotheby and others. And I know this because sometimes at IGLCA we receive requests that you have a documentation of such and such temple with such and such statue. Now it is being sold there, so please provide us so that we can inform the police. Now, I'm not talking just of this kind of theft. I'm talking of something much more serious. And what am I trying to take you to? And what am I trying to bring you to? It is about not just using art for a very specific purpose like making money or propaganda. Art is also used for seizing power, for success in elections, for making plays and stories, for creating false heroes. As an artist, you must understand this, because some of these people will like to employ you at a point and say that this is what is to be done. So you must understand that. But there is another very big assault on the art of India, or the vision of art of India. And this is by people who intrinsically think that the arts of India have a misplaced theory. Some of them think that this whole business of raso vaisaha or rasa is nothing but a false pill. That you are asked to do dance and create rasa and get lost in the world of rasa. And therefore immediate concerns like social concerns about which I talked about, gender equality, this and that, are lost. That is one section of people. The other section of people is who feel that art is something which must again not be about beauty of the world, beauty of the material things, beauty of men and women in particular. There is a strange, well, not strange, it has been there for a very long time, but there is a kind of Puritanism which says that beauty is something that threatens and that it must be covered, that it should not freely come out, because they believe that creation is lower than the creator. This is something very important that you have to understand. For all those who believe that creation or people or world or this material world is lower than a higher ideal, whether it is a political ideal or a social ideal or ideal of a utopia of a kind or a religious ideal, that this world is something which is to be manipulated, and that this world itself, the world itself, is not divine. Something you must understand. They say it is material. What is divine is what was given to us by divine sources, a book or a prophet. That is something which is to be obeyed only. And that is what can manipulate the world. So manipulation of the world and degradation of creation is unacceptable in the Indian tradition. In the whole of Indian system of all the Indian philosophies, I mean, leave aside Charavaks and others who believe that there is nothing beyond the material world. But in all philosophies, everything material is also divine. The creator is not separate from creation. जो जगत बनाता है वो जगत बनता भी है. One who creates this world also becomes the world and is not separate from the world. They are the two sides of the same coin. And as has been put in so many Mahavakyas, Sarvam Idam Khalu Brahma. How can it be Sarvam Idam Khalu Brahma if the material world is not Brahma? If it is lower, if it can be manipulated, if a man can manipulate a woman, if a man of a higher status can manipulate men and women of smaller status, then there can be no Sarvam Idam Khalu Brahma. So this vision of, call it equality if you like, but it is not the equality of Rousseau and Western definitions, but this samata, samatva, harmony, ekatva, atma, this is something which looks upon everything as divine, and therefore it is the divine that becomes the world. The divine becomes the world, the divine is born in the world. So the Ishvara that has made the Jagat is born in the Jagat, and that is the phenomena of what is called avatara or incarnation. You see, most people look upon this philosophy as a religious philosophy. not as a philosophic tenet, not as a deep philosophic system. I will ask you here a small question. If you look at the history of the world, I think I have about 20 minutes more, something like that, If you look at the history of the world, what are the two cultures that have produced maximum art? Tell me two civilizations or cultures or nations, use whatever word you like, or part of the world. Yes, ma'am? Huh? India and? Egypt. Well, Egypt produced many things in size, but not in tremendous variety, and not for, of course, for a long time, but not so much. The only other country which produced immense art, and in a very short period of its life, because it got wiped out by Christianity, is Greece. India and Greece are the only two cultures that produce these great art. And India produced, of course, 100 times more in quantity. Well, justifiably so, because India is 200 times bigger than Greece and all that. But why? Have you ever thought of it deeply, why this has happened? What was the reason? Because both these civilizations, they believed in incarnation. Incarnation is Latin, incarnate. Carnation is taking the body. It's a translation of the Greek word and sarkosis. Sarkosis is flesh, becoming flesh. So these are the two cultures that believe that God becomes flesh. God not only acquires a shape or a vigraha or an idol, something to be worshipped. No, God becomes flesh. And God lives. So in the Greek world, the gods came. They cohabited with human women. They produced heroes. Those heroes had a life. They did great acts. And then they went and became stars. The whole idea is the same. The idea of taking a body and sarcosis. Incarnation. The Christians took this idea from the Greeks, but they stopped short of it. They said only one incarnation, one and only Son. God himself doesn't come down, but only sends a Son. And the Son has no sister, etc., etc. So they partly borrowed the idea, just a little bit. But whole Christianity is based upon incarnation. Islam didn't find that acceptable, so it went back to the Jewish tradition. Now, it is only when you become flesh that when you have the idea of becoming the material, of becoming flesh, of becoming shape, that you have art. What do you do in Bharatanatyam? You act a nayak or a naika. You become a naika. You become a nayak. You become Krishna. You become Radha. You become Lalita. You become Gopi. And then you are no longer that student of Kalakshetra coming to learn from where Tindivanam or Banaras or whatever. You are at that moment that character. And that character has become flesh and blood in you. The bhava, the reality, the truth of that patra, that character has come into you and pervaded you. Natyashastra says that just as dry wood burns thoroughly, not a little speck of the wood is left, but the whole thing burns. Similarly, the bhava enters the abhineta, the actor, the actresses, the natta, the nati. It is becoming that idea or that bhava. Idea is an incomplete word. This is art. This is dance. Dance is something which illustrates the phenomena of art more than any other form of art. Because dance is natya. And this morning, Shri Ramadurai talked about Shiva. So Shiva is dancing by remembering Maya pidam smritam nrittam sandhya kale tu nityataha. So he remembers the eternal power of nritya, which is older than Shiva himself. And when he remembers, when it enters him, then he becomes dance. And those who appreciate this philosophy, like W.B. Yeats, the Irish philosopher who persuaded the judges to give the Nobel to Rabindranath Tagore, he says so. There is no difference between the dancer and the dance. The dancer has become the dance. Now, this complete fusion of what is created and who is the creator is art. And this cannot happen unless you believe in Sarkosis, Incarnation, Avatar. That is why there is nothing but depicting the Leela of avatars in Indian art. Whether it is painting, whether it is dance, whether it is Rama Avatara, Krishna Avatara, Devi Avatara, Shiva Avatara, it is divine coming down. And this descent of the divine, descent of the supernatural is the most recent great philosophical system developed in India, that by Shri Aurobindo. What else is the idea of Shri Aurobindo? Shri Aurobindo does not talk of going into Nirbij Samadhi only, the Kundalini rising and the sadhika or the sadhak going into Nirbij Samadhi and seeing the Brahma. No, he also talks about the descent of the supramental being to transform man. And the mother initiated the town of Auroville with the idea that this would be a place where someday the supramental being shall emerge. So it is transformation of the material by the divine. Transformation of that which is ordinary, that which is earthly, that which is mine. That may be my child, my husband, my son, my father, my boss, my whatever. That is something which comes to the point of divine. And that is something which transforms human relationships also. So, when you see the child as child, and yet the child is Brahma. Jagatodharana. You know what that means? Jagatodharana. Adisitala Yasoda. The Brahma is playing in the lap of Yashoda. The divine has become the material that I can know, that I am myself, that I am related to, that I can worship as Vatsalya Bhava. So this power, which is enshrined in a philosophic system, and then which is transformed into art, creates abiding art. And I have given you historically the example of two nations which practiced it, the Greeks and the Indians. There is no third country which was able to produce so much art. This is my explanation. And this is the reason why India produces art as if it is done compulsively. People come and destroy it once, twice, thrice, 100 times, again and again, and yet it rises, yet it is done. It is done in little villages, it is done in little huts, small places of humble people, because this is the cultural habit enshrined in a system which is followed. Once we become aware of that system, then we'll produce better, greater, and more contemporary art also. Not just traditional art. Because living in our times, we shall recreate for here and now, because we shall see the divinity before us. So this whole phenomena of bringing the divine into the material, and then that material taking shape and becoming something rare and special. This is part of the culture. That is why the temple culture is so important in India. This is why for 2000 years the temples functioned to create not only art, but vidyas and culture and economy. I'm sure, sir, as an economist, you know it better than even I can think of, that they were money circulators. And when they ceased to exist, then the economy of India collapsed. And finally, at the end of 2 decades of Nehruvian socialism, which had reinforced that whole system, we had what was called the Hindu rate of growth. Because you left the very system which was given to you to make you prosperous. Because art is something that sustains not only decorative things or higher things, but very practical, everyday things. Because it sustains all the 4 Purusharthas, not just moksha, but dharma, artha, and kama. It sustains all 4. As a matter of fact, most of us don't understand how sexuality was transformed through art in ancient India. You know, after studying and trying to teach or talk about Natyashas for almost 25 years, I thought that I must study and then talk about Kama Sutra also. Why? Because in the Indian system, Kama Sutra was not just those funny postures which people are very fond of and they talk about and translations are made and it is splashed. No. Kama Sutra talks about using sexual desire at various levels. At individual level, at social level, at artistic level, and at the divine level. Kama Sutra doesn't talk of the fourth level, but it talks of the three level and the institutions. It is entirely a book of how you make your most innate and your strongest desire purposeful and beautiful. It is associated with art, therefore. It is associated with transformation of love into love of higher things, and eventually the love of divine. So Kama Sutra is the only place where the 64 arts are defined. They are not defined in Manusmriti, they are not defined in Natyashastra or in Nritya Ratnavali. They are defined in Kama Sutra. Why? Because women should know those 64 arts. You know, these days I'm so tired of listening from Harvard to Hawaii, from Hyderabad to Hooghly, all this thing, rubbish that women were not educated in ancient India. And scholars, particularly of the Marxian kind, not just at JNU, but in many places, even other American universities, or I've been a couple of times to Oxford and others, they would always say, yes, but what is the evidence? Where is it written that women should be educated? They were not sent to Gurukula. They were never sent to Gurukula. I said, yes, they were not sent to Gurukula, because ancient Indians didn't want to make the mistake that you are making. So somebody asked me, what is the mistake that we are making? I said, you are making the mistake that white women are not reproducing now. And very soon, the number of white people will eventually disappear in Europe. In England, you are less than the colored population already. So women had to reproduce, and therefore they were married soon so that they could reproduce. As simple as that. But they continued to be educated. That is, they continued to be educated at husband's home or when they got married. And please read this in the Kama Sutra. This is the line. I don't remember it, otherwise I would have given you the quote. And then their education consists of 64 kinds of arts. And these arts are not just, making rangoli, or they are very complicated arts, like Vyakarana, like Natya, like dance. You think dance is simple like making a rangoli? I don't have to ask this question in Kalakshetra. It's one of the most intricate systems of achieving something. It requires healthy mind, healthy body, dedication, whatnot. And not just dance. 64 kalas included learning languages, speaking far-off languages, milicha vikalpitam, etc. Of course, every woman was not lucky enough to be educated. she is not lucky enough to be educated even in modern democracy. There is a huge rate of fallout from American universities in first year also. So that's not the point. But women were educated. And there was the idea, not just the ideal, but the practice and how it is to be done. They were given education in 1, 2 of the 64 arts. So it is again arts, kala, chatushashti kala, that made them people, persons who were able to make the grihastha beautiful. In last 30 years, all that I hear is career woman. Career. And nobody talks of career in arts. Of course, there are some mad women who do it, and I'm glad that there are some. So there are women who become actresses and painters and all that. But the ideal of the liberated woman is the one who makes a career and leaves an executive like Shri Ramadorai behind. No? That's the ideal of gender freedom. Is it a healthy ideal? Is it a healthy ideal for anybody, man or woman, that you progress without art? And I see today, 2 minutes more, I see today so many MBAs. You know, I was an English teacher. So I used to get a salary which language teachers will get, Hindi, English, Marathi, whatever. And then came a whole new tribe in the universities of those who were teaching business administration and business schools. And I could see that business schools were hot and private schools were charging massive fees. And the Indian boys and girls also, but boys wanted to go abroad and pay massive fees and work their back off for next 10 years to repay the loan they had taken. So I asked a couple MBA teachers, what do you teach and how do you teach? I can understand that if somebody is going to a laboratory in which you have a nuclear cyclotron or some such very massive, expensive instrument, then you need money. But you teach on the blackboard like I do. You just speak for the same time. And you get this salary which is 10 times more than mine. So what is so special? So somebody who was honest, he said, this is all a fraud. We have just created a hype. Then I asked them, what do you teach? So I tried to read some of their books. And what I learned was they teach how to be unscrupulous, how to cheat your workers, how to pay them as less as possible, and how to bring down a competitor in the market. This is something which is the hard, cold fact. What can save you from it? If you have done some art, if you have done something which can be called whether painting or recitation or whatever, if you have done an artistic pursuit, then you will know that what is prized in society today in the world of competition is not something that brings happiness. It may be enshrined as the pursuit of happiness in the American Constitution, but it does not. What brings long-time happiness, abiding happiness, is something else. And that is yoga kalasu kaushalam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bharat Gupta, for giving us such an in-depth essence of harmony through art. With your articulate keynote address, quoting from Indian and Greek civilizations, thereby giving us an overview from the Vedas to the Prahasanas and the current social standing of art, which made it very interesting and I'm sure thought-provoking to one and all of us. With this, we conclude the morning session, the inaugural session of Kala Samprekshana. Request the dignitaries to please take your seat in the audience before we start the first session of the seminar. With Nada, the Individual and Universal Connect by Srimati Vishakha Hari. More about Srimati Vishakha Hari. Kalaimamani Srimati Vishakha Hari is a practitioner of the ancient art form Harikatha or Katha Kirtanam.